Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CL Live session, yet another session. As you all know, that CL is a recruiting and staffing company working across the country, across industry sectors. We recruit people across different functions spread across the country. Due to the privileged position that we have, we look at both sides of the equation in the talent market. On one side, we see the behaviors and the demand of what the employers are looking at, and on the other, that we look at what do job seekers and professionals look for. We put this knowledge and insight together and present back in our CL live sessions for professionals like you, which we believe would be very helpful to plan one's career on one hand, and on the other, for the organizations to plan their strategies further. So that's what is CL Live all about. In the previous sessions, we have spoken about topics which are very important for the organizations in the current times. Today, we have chosen one such topic, which is challenges in hybrid working. All of us know that the future of work has gone through a tremendous amount of transformation after the pandemic. We all know that organizations are going to, across the world, adapt hybrid working. That means a part of the workforce are going to work from a location which is different from the office or the factory or the warehouse or the project site where the organizations most people are working. So there will be some people who would be all the time round the year working fully remotely. There'll be some people who would possibly come 3 days a week, or 2 days a week, or one day a week, or could be just a few hours a week, or maybe just 1 or 2 days a month to the workplace. So the workplace is no more the physical workplace that all of us understood and related with. Now the workplace has sort of expanded from the physical workspace provided by the organization to the virtual workspace that the organization provides, and people use that workspace to deliver their responsibilities. So, in this kind of a context, in one of those CL live sessions in the past, we had conducted a survey, a huge survey, and we had shared what people are talking about. We know for sure that this is going to be the future across industry sectors across the globe. Of course, from industry sector to another industry sector, the behaviors and the percentage of people working remotely could vary. However, on any given day, organizations will have some people working remotely. So the work style is going hybrid for sure. As the work style is changing, there are also certain challenges which are coming up. We have been observing this over the last few months in India across industry sectors. So we held a survey like every time we base our CL live session based on a study, primary study that we do in the market. So we held a survey and we asked these questions to our people, to the professionals who are working in different industry sectors across different levels and functions, asking them about what challenges they see while they are working hybrid. We gave them four options. We asked them to prioritize. An overwhelming percentage of people said that is communication issues are the most important segment of issues that they are facing while they're working in the hybrid style. 37% of them. So out of the four factors, you can understand 37% is very, very significant and important factor. So one cluster is communication issues. We will talk about it. The second cluster became performance management issues. 28% of the people have talked about performance management issues as a major challenge while working hybrid. And the third one is the team spirit. And the fourth one, which is very close to the number three, is the infrastructure and security. So you can put them into four buckets. One bucket is the communication issues, which is there in the minds of most people. They are saying that it's an important issue. Then the second issue is about performance management, where people are thinking that how to manage performance of people. What are the best practices? How do we deal with it? And the third one is team spirit. The fourth one is information and security. In the next few minutes, let me talk about these four aspects one by one, very quickly, our thoughts, some of the best practices that we see in the market. So, first, let's talk about the communication issues. And an overwhelming percentage of people who have brought this out are actually the people from the HR function. So, which tells us that a lot of people are raising this as a concern to the HR team, and HR teams across the country, across industry sectors, are observing these communication issues as a major challenge. So, how are they dealing with it? What are the best practices? I think it's first and foremost, it's about being sensitive towards this particular issue is the first thing that the organizations have to take care. We have to recognize that communication is becoming an issue while people are working some in the factory, in the project sites or the warehouses or in the field, and some at home. So after recognizing this issue, the being sensitive to the issue of communication, managers need to really up the up their skills about how they communicate. Earlier, it was, of course, relatively easy to communicate. There were certain norms established at the workplace. How do managers communicate? Not everything they are used to writing or sending an email. Currently there are so many different kind of digital tools, whether it is WhatsApp. There are so many collaborative tools, your voice messages, your video messages, YouTube, and so many different kind of communication tools and channels which are available from the traditional communication method, which was email and phone or in person communication. Now, apart from these three, there are so many other types of communication which are happening. There are Zoom calls, Google Meet, and Open House, and so many kinds of things. So the managers need to really plan this very well, that which communication they need to do with using which channel and when they need to communicate. Many managers are forgetting to communicate important decisions using the channel that it deserves the communication. There are many times people are complaining of uh, their manager unable to manage the time well. So they're receiving calls later in the day, and many people are talking about burnout and things like that. So all of these are to be directed and managed well by the manager. So the manager has to improve his or her skills of managing time well, planning, proactively communicating, and directing the communication at the right people. I think these are issues of skill. It is not issue of knowledge. Every manager understands that they need to manage their time, they need to be proactive, they need to plan their communication, they need to communicate to the right people, take a feedback, listen to them, and all of this they know. However, the way they were practicing earlier and the way they need to practice it now, there is a lot of new nuances have come into this communication. They need to really be aware of this. Now, the third aspect is about leveraging the tools they need to use. Some managers have stuck to the old three traditional tools, which is in person communication or send an email or a phone call. However, there are many other tools which have come, and we need to really leverage them well. Many organizations have got collaborative platforms. They have chats and various services which are available today. Most organizations have, but have the managers understood how to deal with it? We see so many employees do not know how to use some of these tools. Maybe the manager is communicating, but the employee hasn't really come on board on that platform yet, or the employee is not checking that platform frequently. Some managers are using so many different platforms that the employees are getting confused as to which platform the message has come. Some is using some Telegram and WhatsApp and Google Hangout and Meet and Zoom and email and phone call, so many channels. It can definitely be confusing. Can there be a particular norm? So, to summarize this particular aspect of communication challenges, I would say that the managers need to really improve their skills, number one. Number two, the HR department has to really sensitize all the people working in that organization, their partners, their contractors, the people in the ecosystem about the importance of communication in the new world of working. And thirdly, it's about using the right tools. So these are the best practices that we have been observing. Organizations are able to follow. We hope that these will help our listeners today of this particular session. So this is about the communication issues. Now let's move on to the second most important issue which has been brought out by the people. That's about managing performance. 28% of the people said that performance management is a challenge in the hybrid way of working. Of course, it is a challenge because earlier the manager was able to observe day in and day out all the people who are working. The manager was able to observe the work style, was able to give a feedback quickly, was able to correct, was able to observe the output, was also able to observe input. These are the smart, very good managers who did all of this very well, gave feedback, corrected, made improvement. So this was the earlier way of doing things. Now, when we are working in a hybrid model, that means only a part of the team is working directly, in front of the manager, and the manager is able to observe, while another part is not present right at that point of time. So how does performance gets managed? So I think many managers were very disciplined about communicating what the team's goals are, what the team's overall targets or objectives or key performance indicators are. And those managers were able to divide those or distribute the KPIs amongst the people in the team. So they were able to define for every role what the KPIs need to be, and they were able to set a target, and they were able to monitor it. While this is theory, what percentage of managers really did that? You know, it is definitely far, far lesser than 100%. However, the ideal is that every manager has to do this. In the remote working style, there is no other way. One has to do it. So, of course, there are challenges that how do you measure everybody's performance? There are certain functions which are relatively easy to measure the output, and some of the inputs and intermediate process parameters. It is easier to measure in some cases, while it is difficult in some other cases. However, it's now the requirement that every role needs to have KPIs, and these KPIs need to be clearly defined. The targets are to be assigned and communicated. And the logic behind these KPIs needs to be understood by the employee. so that employee is motivated, employee understands that these targets are specific, these are realistic, these are achievable, there is a particular time frame to achieve all of these. And if I fall behind, what is the course correction which needs to be done? So all of this is, there is no two ways of doing it. That means it is management by objective has to happen in with much higher rigor than it used to happen in the past. So it is about defining those, measuring those, and communicating frequently. Some managers assign targets, they don't really measure it. If they measure it, they don't communicate it. It won't work. Naturally, performance management is a challenge in the hybrid working. 28% of the people, especially the managers and team leaders, have come up with this concern that they're finding it difficult to manage the performance. In today's time, when the workforce consists of a lot of young people, it's all the more important and critical that we need to give them frequent feedbacks and frequent uh, suggestions based on their KPIs, the target versus the actuals, and what is there in the pipeline. So, this is the best practice around the performance management. I know this is easier said than done. However, brilliance or excellence is all about good execution. Now, let me come to the third aspect, which is the team spirit, the collaboration, the identity of an individual with a larger self. All of us being human beings, all of us know that we all need to belong. We have a that's a innate human quality. However, all of us need to know as individuals that why should I belong and how should I belong. And I think the communication has to happen between the manager and the team members about each person's own driver about where and how should I belong. I'll give you an example. There are organizations which hold, let's say, sports events and music events or various such events which is beyond work that used to be done for employee engagement purposes. The people who were interested in sports were able to participate in sports. Somebody who's interested in art was able to participate in art, and so on and so forth. So that used to provide a platform where people used to come together, like-minded people used to come together, do something together. So the identity of that individual is no more an individual. The identity now becomes part of a larger group. All of us as human beings have a need to belong to a group. So the manager had to facilitate. HR department had to facilitate this. That theory remains true even today. However, the challenge has accentuated in today's time when we are working in an hybrid environment because all the people are not together and people are not able to physically meet as frequently as they were meeting in the past. So we are limited to phone calls and Zoom meetings and Google Meets and all of that. So we have to find platform. We have to create the right environment where we are able to discuss things apart from work and KPIs and the actuals and the targets and the pipeline. So that kind of an environment needs to be created where the bigger picture is discussed or where areas of interest of people get discussed freely as people used to discuss earlier. So that's in the new context more challenging, but has to be created. We are no more in the middle of the pandemic where people understood that, hey, the first concern is how to keep the engine running. All of us have understood that we have to live with the pandemic, the or the virus as vaccination is going on. All of us know that this will pass over time, but this is not going to go away. So we all, our businesses are back to normal. Work is happening in the normal way, the revenues, targets, profit pressures, and all of that are pretty much real and back to pre-pandemic levels. So, in terms of work, we have to take our team back to the pre-pandemic level. However, the work style and workplace has changed. The workplace is no more physical, it is a combination of physical and virtual. And hence, we have to figure out the new ways of team engagement. And as individuals, we have to figure out what is my desire and what initiative I can take to create that environment for me and my colleagues and make this workplace my own. So that's about the team spirit. And finally, let me come to the point on infrastructure and security. This point, again, close third with the third aspect of team. 17% of the respondents said that this is a challenge that people are facing. All of us know about various kind of online frauds and information stealing, and all of that, which has brought a lot of attention to information security and the defense mechanism of organizations. So, in my mind, there are two aspects to it. One is that the organization has to do a few things, and on the other side, the employees have to do certain things. It is like a hygiene that all of us were used to. Like when we go to office, we groom ourselves in a particular way, and we went to office or to our workplace. In the today's time, in the new way of working, hybrid working, sometimes I go to the physical workplace and sometimes I work in the virtual workspace or the remote workspace. When I come to the remote workspace, that means I work on a computer, I use the camera, I use emails and various other collaborative platforms where I exchange information. I, as an individual, need to understand what are the grooming do's and don'ts, what are the etiquette of do's and don'ts, and I need to follow them. Like while I went to the workplace, I know what are the grooming tips or the ways that I need to dress myself, the way I need to comb my hair or whatever, or how do I clean myself and things like that are all established norms. Similarly, while we are working in the digital workspace, there are established norms. I need to learn them. So this is a need for the employee. All of us, you and I, need to learn. So there are certain etiquette and we need to master them, we need to demonstrate them as a responsibility of a responsible employee of our organization. And on the other hand, the organizations have info security policies, data privacy, confidentiality, so many policies, many organizations have. However, how many employees know this very well and demonstrate that effectively every day at work? I think organizations have got a need to now spread that awareness and build that knowledge effectively within that organization. And regularly they need to monitor, they need to strengthen their own defense mechanism. The investments on the right amount of infrastructure and right amount of processes are a must. So I hope in today's episode, the several ideas that we shared, the several best practices that we shared are helpful for individuals as well as for organizations and leaders who are leading the change in organizations in crafting the future workplace. Thank you very much for being here, and we will again catch up in the future CL Live episodes. Thank you very much.